For decades, ABBA has remained one of the most beloved and iconic groups in the history of music. With timeless hits like Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia, and The Winner Takes It All, their sound has echoed across generations, uniting fans from every corner of the globe. But while the songs and the stage performances became legendary, much about the inner lives of the members remained shrouded in mystery. Few have been as quietly influential yet deeply private as Benny Andersson, the band's musical mastermind. Now, at 78 years old, Benny has finally broken his silence on a subject that fans have speculated about for decades. For years, whispers circled about what ABBA really meant to him, what drove his passion for the group, and whether he ever felt the weight of its global success. Some wondered if ABBA was just a chapter in his career, or if the band represented something deeper, something far more personal. And at long last, Benny has confirmed what so many long suspected, the truth behind his devotion to the band, his legacy, and the unshakable bond that still ties the group together. His words don't just settle old rumors. They offer rare insight into the heart of a man who helped shape pop music forever. This revelation is not only a confirmation, but also a moment of closure for millions of fans who have spent years hoping to hear him speak when Benny Andersson finally decided to open up. It was as if a curtain had been lifted on one of music's most enduring mysteries. For years, fans speculated about how he truly felt about ABBA's legacy. The band's success had been astronomical, selling hundreds of millions of records and dominating charts worldwide, but Benny rarely indulged in sentimentality when speaking about it. He often appeared pragmatic, focusing more on the technical aspects of songwriting and production than on the emotional weight of being part of one of the most iconic groups in history. This left many wondering, did Benny see ABBA as just a professional project, or did it carry something deeper? In his recent remarks, Benny confirmed what so many longtime fans had quietly believed. ABBA was not simply a career milestone for him. It was his life's greatest creation, the defining achievement of his musical journey. More importantly, he admitted that the bond he shared with the other three members, despite the heartbreaks and personal struggles, was something unbreakable. For decades, there had been speculation that the divorces and tensions within the group left scars too deep for reconciliation. But Benny revealed that underneath it all, the music had bound them together in ways that transcended personal conflict. He acknowledged that ABBA's songs were more than just catchy tunes. They were reflections of real emotions, drawn from their own lives. The Winner Takes It All, for example, was not simply a pop ballad, but a raw expression of pain and loss. For Benny, every song was a piece of truth set to melody, and this honesty is what gave ABBA's music its timeless power. By finally admitting this, he validated what fans had always felt, that ABBA's music was not manufactured pop, but genuine art born from human experience. Benny also confessed that, despite his reputation for modesty, he had always known ABBA's impact was monumental. He just chose not to talk about it openly. Now, at 78, he felt it was time to acknowledge that the band's success wasn't just luck or timing. It was the result of four people pouring their hearts into their craft and refusing to compromise on quality. For him, the group's rise was proof of the transformative power of music, something that could cross languages, cultures, and generations. Perhaps most movingly, Benny admitted that ABBA had never truly ended for him. Even after the split in the early 1980s, even during the decades of silence when reunions seemed impossible, the music was always alive within him. He described it as a constant companion, something that shaped his every creative endeavor afterward. And now, with the band's recent resurgence through their Voyage album and hologram concert project, Benny said it felt like coming full circle, a chance to celebrate what had always been there, waiting quietly in the background. In revealing these truths, Benny not only gave fans closure but also confirmed what they had suspected all along, that ABBA was never just another pop group to him. It was his greatest love, his proudest achievement, and the legacy he will carry for the rest of his life. Diddly about ABBA's lasting meaning in his life. After Benny Andersson confirmed the depth of his connection to ABBA, many were struck by the honesty of his words. For decades, speculation had swirled about how he truly felt, especially since he was known for being the quiet craftsman of the group, the one focused on melodies, arrangements, and structure rather than fame. Yet his recent reflections shed light on something that fans had long suspected. ABBA's journey was as personal for him as it was professional. Benny admitted that, during the height of ABBA's fame, he sometimes struggled with the overwhelming pressure of global success. The band was suddenly thrust into the spotlight in a way few could imagine. They weren't just Swedish stars, they were world icons. The tours, the press, the scrutiny. It could be suffocating. Yet, despite the difficulties, Benny confessed that he never lost sight of the joy at the heart of what they were doing. He knew that every performance, every recording session was shaping something bigger than themselves. The songs weren't just climbing charts. They were becoming the soundtrack to people's lives across the world. One of the most surprising confirmations Benny gave was about the emotional cost of their success. He acknowledged that the personal relationships within the band, marked by love stories that later ended in divorce, were deeply tied to their music. Fans had long guessed that the pain and heartbreak of those dissolving relationships bled into their songs, and Benny confirmed that it was true. Tracks like Knowing Me, Knowing You, and The Winner Takes It All were born out of real-life emotional turmoil. For him, those songs were not just hits, but confessions, windows into the soul of the band. At 78, Benny finally admitted that this blending of personal and professional lives was both a gift and a curse. On one hand, it gave ABBA's music its raw authenticity. On the other, it created wounds that took years to heal. For decades, the silence between the band members fueled rumors of irreparable rifts. But Benny explained that while the pain was real, the bond was stronger. Music became the bridge that kept them connected, even when words failed. Another key revelation was Benny's acknowledgement of ABBA's place in cultural history. For years, he downplayed the idea of ABBA being more than just a pop group. But now he conceded that they had changed the face of popular music, proving that a band from Sweden could dominate the global stage. This, he said, was one of his proudest achievements, breaking barriers not just for themselves, but for every international artist who came after them. Benny also reflected on the long years after ABBA stepped away from the spotlight. While fans assumed he had moved on, he revealed that ABBA never left his heart. He would hear their songs played at weddings, parties, and even in movies, and every time it reminded him that their music had taken on a life of its own. This, he admitted, was a source of comfort and pride. Even when they weren't performing, ABBA was still out there, woven into the world's memories. By confirming these long-held suspicions, Benny gave fans more than just an inside look at his feelings. He validated their own. For millions who had felt deeply moved by ABBA's songs, his words were a reminder that the music was never shallow or manufactured. It was real, raw, and deeply human. Benny Andersson's revelations didn't just confirm the depth of his attachment to ABBA, they also illuminated how much the group's legacy shaped him personally over the decades. One of the strongest points he made was that ABBA's music was never simply about entertainment. For him, it was always about communication, a way to express feelings that words alone could not capture. Fans had long suspected this, especially when listening to the emotional weight of songs like Chiquitita or Slipping Through My Fingers. Now Benny confirmed that these weren't just pretty melodies. They were born from lived experience and often reflected his own reflections on life, love, and loss. At 78, Benny also acknowledged something that had been whispered about for years, that ABBA's music carried an element of melancholy that mirrored the reality of their lives at the time. While the world danced to upbeat tracks like Take a Chance on Me or Waterloo, underneath the glitter there was often a layer of sadness. Benny explained that this contrast was intentional. He believed that music should reflect the complexity of human emotion, where joy and sorrow often coexist. It was this bittersweet quality, he said, that gave ABBA's music its unique and lasting resonance. He also addressed the impact ABBA's success had on his identity as an artist. For decades, Benny pursued projects outside of the band, from composing musicals like Chess to writing orchestral pieces. Still, he confessed that no matter what he created afterward, the shadow of ABBA was always present. Fans and critics alike often measured his later work against the group's legacy. Instead of resenting it, Benny admitted that he eventually embraced it. ABBA, he now confirmed, was the foundation upon which his entire artistic life was built, and he no longer felt the need to separate himself from it. One of the most poignant parts of Benny's reflections was his acknowledgement of the fans. For years, ABBA's listeners speculated about whether the band members,